Yo, SuperDerek, this is your biggest fan, Flash Rodman, calling in telling you that I'm a huge Dragon Quest fan, and I am super excited for Dragon Quest Builders 2 and the Ultimate Edition of Dragon Quest 11. I cannot wait to play the game again in 16-bit mode.
Derek, how's it going, man? Question for ya. What RPG are you most looking forward to from E3 this year? Mine is most definitely PSO2. Finally. Also, if I can recommend for a future review, Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii. Love to know your thoughts on it and see if it earns a spot on the game collection.
Well, that was kind of artsy, don't you think? Good morning, everyone. I am SuperDerek, and it's time for your JRPG Weekly update. Starting with today's top headline, Grandia's forking bad decisions. Grandia. I had such high hopes for you. I had such high hopes for Gung Ho as well as the custodians of this intellectual property. I was hoping that they were going to be doing this game justice, but based on what we've seen so far, I think I understand why they've been keeping things kind of on the quiet. They came out with some features that they said that this new port would entail, that this would include, that really earned my hype. Well, the promises earned my hype, but what we're seeing delivered have me a little bit concerned. You've seen the little bit of gameplay footage that I've shown for you last week when I talked about how I was kind of disappointed with the fact that the game was kind of got that smudged over look, that filtering that they call it. It kind of makes everything look a little bit rounded. I personally have a love for the game as I originally played it, which was quite pixelated, and I'm okay with that. I would have probably preferred that, and it's actually, I think, arguably a good aesthetic at this point in time to go with the pixelated look. If you take a look at games like Octopath Traveler, which we'll talk about more in a moment, the games didn't have this smoothed over, smudgy look applied to the sprite work that they created, because that would, in essence, ruin it. I'd say that that's kind of what happened here with Grandia, but that's not the big forking bad problem that they have. They also aren't putting it on anything other than Nintendo Switch, which I sort of understand. I mean, it is a really great console in and of itself, and it's where a lot of RPGs are headed. Unfortunately, they're really going to be limiting who can buy their game because they're not putting it on the PlayStation 4, which, if you're keeping score, there are 3 times as many PlayStation 4s out in circulation right now as there are Nintendo Switches. That's a fact. By only releasing it on the Nintendo Switch, they're limiting their sales, their potential sales for this game, to a third of the audience that they could have. I mean, and that's assuming that everybody who owns a Switch also owns a PS3. They could be limiting themselves to a fourth of their potential audience. That's a bad decision. The reason for saying that it's only going to the Nintendo Switch is that they said the game does not support 4K, which means absolutely nothing as far as like compatibility goes, because there are plenty of games on the PlayStation 4 that don't support 4K. In fact, my PlayStation 4 does not play anything in 4K because it's just the original PS4. It max that it does is 1080p, and I'm okay with that. So why am I being prevented from being able to play this game on my PS4 if that's what I wanted? There are other reasons that they cited, stating that it felt more at home on the on the Nintendo Switch, but really, I don't know, man. Also, it's gonna be digital only. And you can tell, I mean, just look behind me. I got a bunch of games. I'm a physical game collector. I know for a good portion of you guys out there, that's not really a deal breaker. But for me, it may be. I just feel weird about spending a bunch of money on something that I can't have in my hands. And if my Switch console breaks or something, and I can't, recover it because the eShop is no longer available or something, I would no longer have any method of playing the game that I had purchased, and that bites. I can't stomach that personally, but for people who are more space constrained, that's probably not such a big deal breaker. that was kind of the headline that a lot of people were kind of talking about, and I wanted to just kind of weigh in and let you guys know, curb your expectations, curb your enthusiasm a little bit for this release, because here's the other thing that I was going to touch on earlier. They had also, when they announced this, said that they were going to include some bloom, some depth of field sort of things that would really, if that were applied to this game, it would make it look like Octopath Traveler. It sounds a lot like they overpromised and are in the process of under-delivering. And that's just sad, really. But hey, that's the news, and I got a report on it. Also, we have some new game and port announcements to talk about. Some new games that were announced just after E3, which is not exactly typical, but I'm happy to have them to talk about today. Baldo is an action-adventure that looks sort of Studio Ghibli inspired, and also it has a lot of Zelda-ish aesthetics to it. It looks kind of like isometric top-down a little bit. It looks really cool in my opinion, and I really want to see more about this game. And then also, I didn't get to talk about this last time because I didn't find out about it until a viewer actually mentioned it. There's this game that is, it's a Chinese company's making this. It looks like a straight ripoff of Breath of the Wild, in fact, but it looks like it's been really well done, and obviously I'm not mad about that in the least. This looks like it could be really, really interesting. I'll just go ahead and play the trailer here and we can, check this out together. This game is... it's coming to Nintendo Switch. Also, so is Baldo. They're coming to Nintendo Switch, both of them. This one is also, though, coming to iOS and to PC, which is kind of interesting that it's coming to iOS. It doesn't look like the kind of game that an iPhone could handle, but I suspect that has a lot to do with the fact that this is Chinese developed, and there's probably a much bigger market in China for games on iPhone than there are on Nintendo Switch. Hey, we'll see what happens. I'm going to keep my eyes on this one. Also, I wanted to correct a couple errors that I made, a couple mistakes that slipped through last week on the JRPG Weekly update. As a responsible YouTuber, I feel that sometimes when things do slip through those cracks, it is my responsibility to follow up and say that Persona 5 Royal is not in fact coming out in October of this year. Well, it is, but only for Japan. It's still supposed to come out in sometime in 2020. My bad. When you're dealing with 35 games, it's easy to have some stuff kind of slip through. So I've actually got a few other things to talk about today as well, including Trials of Mana, which is also going to be coming to Steam and PlayStation 4. And before I had that marked as a Switch exclusive, but it is not. Only the Collection of Mana was supposed to be a Switch exclusive. And then, in regards to The Last Remnant, I had talked about how I recalled hearing that the game had been taken down from Steam and then the remaster was put up in its place. Well, I was half right. It was taken down from Steam, but the remaster was not put back onto Steam and is still yet to be put back onto Steam. So that's kind of a bummer. I thought for sure that game had already been put back onto Steam, but that is not the case. And also, in the vein of correcting last week, there were a few games that I didn't actually get to show off any trailers for. So I figured let's go ahead and take a look at those today. There's only 4 of them, so it's going to be pretty quick, but I think that they are definitely worth a look. Now this one, I also saw some of it during this presentation. And it looks like this could be pretty interesting, though I gotta admit I'm not a huge Marvel guy, so I can't be as excited for this game as I was for Dragon Ball Z, but this could be really good. I really do enjoy the art style that's being presented here. It looks a lot more like the X-Men cartoon that I grew up kind of seeing bits and pieces of. It's not super dark. comes out soon, the 19th of next month. Now, I have been following Trails of Cold Steel 3 for some time, so this wasn't like a new announcement or anything. But I was remiss to not include this at least having a showing at E3 this year. And so you can hear the Nippon Ichi Software America voice actors giving it their all, this localization. Yeah, there were some people pretty concerned about this localization, and based on what I'm seeing so far, I think there's nothing to be really concerned about.
I've got permission from the inspection team. Allow me to help too. It's not a mission. It's my duty as a member of Class 7.
I'll take you to a world of fantasy. Thank you for listening.
I didn't stand a chance 3 years ago, but I've grown a lot since then.
Yeah, I have no context for this, unfortunately, because I never did play the original Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2, but that's gotta change at some point.
Ultimate battle. We've all trained for over 2 years, each of us honing our skills. The embers of war are about to ignite. Trails of Cold Steel 3. Pre-order today.
And that's coming out in September this year. And then here's a couple games that we're finally getting that were not released when it came out on Vita. Scarlet Grace is a game that came out on Vita in Japan. We never got that. Then I'm not sure which console Romancing Saga 3 was on. I think PlayStation. I think Super Nintendo, but I'm not positive on that, or Super Famicom, but we never got that. And these games are very, from what I understand, similar in presentation to Octopath Traveler. And I think that part of the reason that we're seeing this is because Square has announced, or they have stated, that they have a lot of interest in bringing all of their backlog of content to be available digitally. So this could be more opportunities for us to get things localized to the West that we missed out on a long while back. Knock on wood. And this is coming to PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, and PC. But as for an actual release date, it is yet to be announced. But yeah. It is a couple of good-looking games. Now for a quick bit of other news, we've got Elden Ring, which is that game that's being made by From Software in conjunction with George R.R. Martin. Well, we got some more details on what exactly this is going to be, and it sounds like it's going to be sort of an evolution from the Dark Souls series. This is, in fact, going to be another third-person action RPG. I suspected as much. And they said that this one's going to be a vast world, a more open world. Well, they didn't say open world, but they said it was going to be a more open game world. So I'm not sure if that means that it's open world in the sense that, like, we think of open world, or if it just means it's going to be less linear in its presentation. They also clarified that George R.R. Martin wrote the lore of the events preceding the game, and that his involvement won't really be reflected in the gameplay as it plays out. It's more so just setting the stage. So that's something that we can look forward to seeing as well. Also, Kingdom Hearts Remind apparently will be much bigger than I had anticipated when it gets released this winter. Nomura said that this was going to be sort of like a final mix sort of version of the game that this adds to it. It's going to include new scenarios, new boss fights, new characters to play as, and it's going to be much more like, instead of re-releasing Kingdom Hearts 3 Final Mix, this DLC will just be that for us, which is really good because I don't want to have to spend another $60 on, just a few extra bits here and there, right? Nomura said he's looking forward to releasing it in this winter alongside the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Oh boy, it's gonna be a heck of a year, isn't it? Now, we do have some other new RPGs to talk about this week that are coming out this week. Just a few, though, just a couple actually, and one of them is Super Neptunia RPG. This is a Canadian-developed RPG that we've been watching since it was announced, and it looks like it's finally going to be coming out to PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch this week. And then, you might have heard about this other game. I don't know. It's by some no-name guy. I don't really know. It's called Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. Obviously, this is the Castlevania-style RPG side-scrolling Metroidvania game that we've been eagerly anticipating. If you're at all a fan of, Symphony of the Night or games of those nature from the Castlevania series, this is going to be right up your alley. You should already be well on top of this by now, but in case this is going to, blindside you or something, make sure you pick that up. It is coming out this week. It's coming to everything, but I know that it's coming to at least Switch this week. And finally, we've got a question of the week. And my question for you guys is, now that E3 is over, now that the dust is settling and all the hype is slowly wearing off, people are, they're nursing their E3 hangovers and kennel cough they all got at the conventions. Now that all that is done, and we've got a long ways before they're going to start announcing big things again, what is your one game that you're going to walk away with, that you're just most intensely interested in? What is the one game that has just grabbed you and you can't let go of it? That's what I really want to see, because there were so many games. There was such a huge showing, and I honestly, I'm not even sure what I am most hyped for at this point. Maybe Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's pretty close. I mean, Breath of the Wild's successor, that is going to be also pretty hype. I am sure of it, but Final Fantasy VII looks like they've done enough to the game to assuage my concerns, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. By the way, did anybody else notice that the announcers, they said that this game, that this is going to be episodic. This first episode is going to have 2 Blu-ray discs of content? Can you imagine? Because Blu-ray discs are they can be quad layer. And I'm curious if that means that this is 2 quad layer discs of content. Is this 128 gigabytes of game data that we're talking about here? Oh my gosh. Anyways, I'm getting way off topic all over again. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you guys for joining me today. It has been a lot of fun. Also, I do have mugs for sale if you're at all interested. There's a link right below the video, actually. Anyways, I am SuperDerek. Thanks for joining me. And this has all been news to me. See you next week, guys.